Welcome to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. This podcast is sponsored by Vantage Circle, the simple and AI-powered rewards and recognition platform for employee engagement.
Before we dive into our conversation today, let's picture a situation. Imagine you have worked with a company for a few years now, and you love the culture, your co-workers, and the work that you do. But lately, you have realized that you want to try something new and accept a new task or responsibility. This is where the role of internal mobility comes into play. The transfer of people within an organization to other positions, departments, or locations is called internal mobility. It's becoming a very popular trend in the modern workplaces today as businesses now appreciate the value of retaining bright talents and providing possibilities for growth and development. Hello listeners, and welcome to the Vantage Influencers Podcast, where we explore a wide range of HR topics and ideas that are sure to captivate you and inspire you. I'm your host, Shushmita, and to have deeper insights into internal mobility, its potential, and bonding with technology and branding, I'm so glad to welcome Prithveesh MM, the Associate Director, Global Talent Acquisition at Biocon Biologics. Welcome to the show, Prithveesh.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so delighted to have you here today, Prithveesh. So would you like to tell us about yourself, your corporate background, and what led you to join the healthcare industry, transforming healthcare and transforming lives with Biocon Biologics?
Absolutely. So I'm born and raised in Bangalore, have lived all my life here, except for the time that I was away for a few years. I did all my education here in commerce and later MBA HR and marketing. I joined TCS straight out of my campus. And as part of my professional journey, my first role was to lead a talent acquisition role, largely responsible for campus hiring for south of India. And then I also did a brief stint in the lateral hiring space, post which I internally moved as an HR business partner, supporting one of the banking and financial services customer. And later on again moved internally to a corporate HR role, wherein I was largely looking at programs like the careers, internal mobility, performance management, mentoring, and leadership development. And after this, I moved to the US. So I was based in Cincinnati and New Jersey later on, where I had the opportunity to manage HR regionally in Ohio for a large workforce, and later moved for a technology leadership role in talent acquisition, where I was largely responsible to grow and staff entry-level talent, and also look at some strategic programs within the talent acquisition space. After which I moved back to India, spent a brief time again in TCS, managing HR for one of our business units, and very recently joined Biocon Biologics as a global TA leader and responsible very clearly for the campus hiring strategy, relationships with key universities, all of enabling functions hiring, and looking at the demand management and supply planning and the internal mobility program. So what drove me to this industry largely is, of course, very, very clearly the kind of people that I work with today, extremely inspiring and knowledgeable set of people, and great to be in a position wherein you're able to work with a company that's truly envisioning itself to be a global leader in biologics, delivering affordable access to innovative and inclusive healthcare solutions, and in turn transforming patient lives. And today, as on today, if you look at last 1 year data, we've served 5.5 million patients globally, and that's something for me very, very remarkable and very purposeful in my life.
Brilliant. I must say, Prithveesh, that firstly, you have a very brilliant career graph, And secondly, now that you are with Biocon Biologics, it's definitely an excellent opportunity to work with some of the best brains in the research, healthcare, and biotechnology and commercial sector. So I'm sure that you have a talented and diverse staff working towards the shared goal of making healthcare inexpensive and accessible globally. So would you like to tell us more about your work? And we'd also love to know about your team as well.
Oh, yeah. As in, I would say we have a very young and a very vibrant talent acquisition team. I think most of us have joined in the last 1 year, joining in from different companies. And I think we're truly coming together with a lot of collaborative ideas from our experiences from our previous companies to essentially come together and build Biocon Biologics from a staffing, from a talent acquisition, from an HR perspective, a really strong organization that can deliver very strong value as we accelerate our business growth in the next few years.
Right. So coming to the topic today, Prithveesh, internal mobility. So talent scarcity has become a major issue in the recent years. Companies have been long seeking ways to embrace internal mobility as a solution, but this time it's happening from a different angle altogether. As we all know that recently a global pandemic struck the world, making overall recruiting processes extremely difficult. And as a result, the notion of internal mobility emerged as an opportunity for all. We'll get into it later, but first, would you like to define the word internal mobility to our audience?
Sure. I think this is something very close to my heart now, but in simple terms to put, it's all about movement of employees within your organization or within your group, either organically or inorganically. It can happen either through as job rotations or swaps, lateral and vertical moves, say deputation to overseas locations, localizations in overseas locations, progressions, and that enable career development, growing talent in-house, promoting key talent, building essentially your next line of leadership. And I can't say this more, right? As you're essentially the program can bring out a future leader, a future CEO, a future CXO of the organization. And that is the impact of internal mobility as a program.
Right. So thousands of individuals work for large corporations across countries, industries, and roles. However, it is not uncommon for recruiters to be utterly, unaware that the perfect candidate may be already, working inside the organization. So that raises the question, why do so many organizations overlook their greatest source of talent, that is their already existing employees?
So I think as a TA guy, I want to sound more positive and optimistic here, right? While I share my response to this, I think if you look at it, forward-looking companies are already doing exceptionally well in their internal mobility program for many years now, right? As in what has happened, say in the last 2 to 3 years in the pandemic wave is essentially the program has got amplified and there's more branding to the program because companies have gone back to their roots and said, hey, why do we need to hire so many from outside? Can we not look at internal talent? And also, for employees, from an employee perspective, they wanted to see, how can I be more secure? How can I grow within? And hence started looking more inwards than outwards. And hence the program gained more visibility, so to speak. But right, as in to your specific question, I can only say that probably companies did not have or did not give focus on data around internal talent enough and may not have probably had the right organization design structures, a construct that showed scientifically drawn career paths. And that's probably why it is so important in today's and the future for you to have a very robust talent strategy, a very robust workforce management lens and an action plan, and strong data linkages, like linkages to your skills, role, experience, learning hours, career aspirations, performance ranks, all of this getting tied together, I think will make it a very, very strong, system wherein you are able to look at internal talent, evaluate internal talent more than looking at an external talent.
Yeah. So do you see that organizations are into internal mobility nowadays, or do you think they are, looking for new candidates?
No, I think if you look at mature organizations or organizations say that have already spent 5-10 years in their lifespan, these are those companies that are very strong, have very strong internal mobility programs because they've already hired external talent in the initial few years, the capability that they need, and now they're growing people within, right? But if you look at a startup sort of a system, that is where you see a lot of external talent being hired, right? But also today there are some really smart creative companies that as soon as they are in the startup ecosystem, they're still promoting internal growth. They're trying to build leaders very quickly. They're giving that visibility, capability, and all of that to people so that you're not losing out on that internal talent anymore. So in short, yes, I think most of the companies today are heavily looking at their internal mobility program.
Yeah, rightly said, Prithveesh, that the employees also benefit from learning, from learning new skills and moving into areas that they are passionate about, which will have a very beneficial impact on how your company performs. But is internal mobility always a win-win situation, or do you see some drawbacks?
So I think very honestly speaking, if companies are trying to force fit employees into roles or into, say, higher roles, in the name of talent mobility, then they are not realizing their potential to grow as an organization. They're all essentially losing out on people. So it goes back to how your company is fully diverse and inclusive on their workforce and shows that intent, promises and delivers on that in terms of growing people. So then as long as you're able to do that from your values statement and you deliver as you promise, then every case of an internal movement becomes a win-win, and eventually the program can run on an autopilot, essentially, right? As in, to give you a little more deeper context to it, right? As in, you have two methods on how internal mobility today happens. One is a conventional method where you talk about an internal job posting program where all the jobs are posted and your internal employees refer to that, they apply, they go through an evaluation, and then they get confirmed onto that role. So that's one. Second is a very inorganic approach wherein forward-looking companies today are looking at methodologies wherein they look at, say, role maturity, span of control, they look at career aspirations of people, they look at their performance ranks, they also look at how do you encourage a culture of movement, and they try to nudge people through their leadership, through various communication channels, and even through technology today, which I'll probably talk a little later. And all of this, I think today is really helping the program essentially to go towards a win-win rather than burning bridges along the way.
Yeah. Also, I think Prithveesh, promotions and intra-departmental and interdepartmental transfers also, are examples of internal mobility as well.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely.
Yeah. Okay. So moving on, Prithveesh, would love to know what are some of the ways of improving internal mobility. That's something that we always want to know, and especially your, how companies can be more technically sound and build a strong employer brand to help fuel internal mobility.
So I think, like I just answered in the last question where I talked about the internal job posting program, which is the IGP program, which runs on a very autopilot sort of a method currently, and a lot of companies have done this for many years now, and they've grown talent. I think it's time where companies leverage technology, they harness technology that's available today through different products, different platforms and solutions, wherein employees can be intelligently matched to opportunities that they can excel with. So those kind of opportunities can range from, say, a part-time project or a gig sort of a method, wherein you come in, do some small work, get, kind of rewarded for that, and then you move on back to your job. It can be rotations, it can be learning, it can be mentorship or full-time roles.
Right.
So meanwhile, I think companies gain full visibility to their workforce and they're able to fill roles faster while promoting a culture of recognition and progression. As in like my CHRO today says, don't become talent hoarders, right? As in let go of talent. And this message is for managers across the value chain, right? As in when you see good talent, build them, but at the end of the day, let go of them at some time because they have to grow, they have to move up the value chain and become leaders for tomorrow. right? So in that context, there are products out in the market that uses machine learning algorithms or predictive intelligence to match individuals with new roles based on skill sets, your working styles, the kind of goals you have, interests, aspirations, and ambitions. As in, through such platforms, employees are essentially, or rather themselves, are able to create those custom pathways and build their dream career all within the existing company, right? So what you're essentially doing is you're not telling an employee what he or she needs to do in terms of their career, which used to happen, say, 10 years back. But what you're essentially enabling for them is to define their own careers, build their own careers in the organization that they work with. So for that, you have to root that in your culture. Your communication has to be so seamless, streamlined, and transparent for them to enable that path. And of course, technology, like I just mentioned, will just amplify, will give them that, that push right up to that platform where they can go and excel. And then what you're essentially doing is you're enabling employees to kind of deconstruct their own skills, understand what they are specialized in. Do they want to move into an area where they deeply contextualize and specialize in that area? Or do they want to diversify and say, I want to become, say, a people manager, or I want to become a leader, or I want to kind of move into different functions altogether. So I think all of this will really preempt them from thinking what they need to do at different junctures in their career, and kind of will help the overall organization in terms of their journeys. How do you build the next line of leaders? How do you build experts? How do you build in product thinking, design thinking, and everything that you do, so that you have a flair of everything that the company needs?
Yeah. So to summarize, culture, communication, the use of better technology, and employees upskilling and reskilling are some key factors that organizations should consider for an absolutely strong internal mobility.
Yeah.
Thank you, Prithveesh, for sharing your experience and knowledge with us today. Our listeners may have some additional questions and they may want to follow you for your work. So please let us know how they may contact you.
Oh, well, I think most of us today are available on LinkedIn as a professional connect. So I'm available on LinkedIn. You can find me as Prithveesh MM. Happy to connect with a lot of like-minded people, willing to share ideas. I work with a lot of students in academia, trying to talk about what I'm learning here and how I can learn back from the academia. So please hit me up, connect, and looking forward to some meaningful conversations.
Yes, we hope to return for another episode to discuss this further, Prithveesh, but for today, it's time to wrap up. So once again, thank you for all your advice on how companies can become more technically sound and establish a great employer brand to help promote internal mobility. It was an honor to speak with you. Thank you once again.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. It's a topic that's very close to my heart, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to talk about it. Yeah.
Thanks for listening to the Vantage HR Influencers Podcast. Please do subscribe to Vantage HR Influencers Podcast on Apple Podcast, Spotify, and our YouTube channel for new episodes.